Alrighty, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Benjamin, and welcome to the weekly updates of my model's presidential election forecast. This is on January 6th, 2020. Now, this week I've only had 2 approval rating polls so far, so that may be throwing a few things off. But I've also added in the statewide approval rating stuff from Morning Consult. I'm just waiting for Gallup's because that's going to provide an interesting picture and a contrast, I think, in a few places. And we do have some somewhat serious stuff to talk about this week. And down in the comments, go ahead and, have fun this week. I don't have anything planned out. Maybe tell me if you actually think that this Iran stuff is going to blow way out of proportion and go into World War III territory, I guess. And as always, likes, comments, and subscriptions genuinely do help out this channel. I've grown a lot since the last cycle, or not the last cycle, since the last presidential election. I'd love to replicate. I'd like to grow even more, obviously, because I think I do a very good job, and I take great pride in making sure I get my forecasts correct and not just trying to sensationalize everything, which I think is the big flaw of most channels. Stellar Spark is one that is a channel like mine where he's more concerned about getting the result correct rather than trying to push a narrative or something like that. Anyway, so y'all know how I do my maps and the percentages and all that. But this week I wanted to talk about the Iran stuff because that kind of blew up really quickly, and pun intended. So we took out one of Iran's top generals. I'm not going to attempt to say his name. Y'all know who he is. And it was a U.S. airstrike against this general. Now, I'm not going to say that this was... I'm not going to try and attack the administration. This is a very complicated decision, and this is one that needs to be... We need to weigh the evidence. The Iranian general that was killed, I'm not sure whether or not to call it an extrajudicial killing. But he undoubtedly ordered proxies to take out American troops. He definitely had ordered his troops to take out protesting civilians in Iran. And he was one of the significant factors behind regional instability. Now, it's not to say the United States hasn't hurt stability in the Middle East, but that's not, that's whataboutism. One action doesn't justify another, not necessarily. So, I think the strike, it happened. I'm not really sure whether or not I think it was a good thing or a bad thing, because there's pros and cons on each side. But I think this might have been a little bit too hasty. But at the same time, it's hard to think of an alternative action that would have decreased tensions in the region. But Iran's response has been, I don't think it's been good. Now, I'm not saying war with Iran is a good idea for the U.S. or Iran. I think war is a very bad option in both cases, for both nations. But I think it's particularly bad for Iran because at best they eventually get their asses handed to them. Worst case for them is they go into civil wars and chaos and everything else. And I don't think that's good. But I think the way they've chosen to respond in the immediacy has been ridiculous. I'm not sure if they've actually done it, but I've seen a few headlines saying that they put a bounty on Donald Trump, which I think is the stupidest thing they could ever do. That's why I'm skeptical of those headlines. Because if you want the U.S. to just strike down with righteous anger and vengeance, as the line goes in in the movie Pulp Fiction. I forget exactly what it is. Yeah, righteous vengeance and furious anger. Except Sam Jackson turned Scottish in that one. But no, and furious anger. Yeah, it's a little bit closer to what I was going for, but that's the best way to do it. And honestly, that would probably, I don't know exactly what that would do, but it would be interesting to see. And I'm not exactly sure how many people would support a war at that point, but I guarantee you it would be well over 60%. Um, because no matter how much you hate the person, no matter how much you dislike Donald Trump, you shouldn't ever support someone getting killed in, you know, hate the sin, love the sinner, basically. And I know I'm saying this at the same time where I'm saying I'm not sure if I support or don't support the killing of a foreign general. But for me, it's what has the person actually, done. In addition, there may be a slight bit of nationalism in that regards. But, it's really all I can say about this. But to anybody thinking this will actually turn into World War III, I think they're just allowing their worst fears about the situation to take over, and their paranoia to take over. I really don't believe for a second that this is going to spark a world war. I don't even think this will spark a declared war. I think this is just going to be, oh, yeah, more tensions, more weird conflict. But the reason why I think that it's a bad idea for the United States to get involved is Iran's not going to invade. We'd be forced to invade a really difficult nation to invade. I mean, the geography works out almost entirely in Iran's favor. And the second thing is, it would be extremely expensive in both lives and dollars. And we wargamed this scenario, believe it or not. In 2002, it was called Millennium Challenge or something like that. And they hired a retired Marine to be the Op 4, the oppositional force. Basically, play the role of Iran. And what he did was he said, so they're expecting me to use newfangled techniques that they can monitor and decipher and conventional warfare with militaries and all that stuff. How about I don't? We're going to use motorcycles to get messages across. We're going to use codes and airfield lights and the minarets during their call to prayer. We're going to use explosive-laden speedboats to take out American ships. Yeah, he did a very good job of modeling what an actual Op 4 would do. The U.S. military said, wait, that's illegal. And they scripted the entire thing after they realized that this general wasn't going to play by what they expected the rules of engagement were going to be. So the U.S. military is a bit overconfident, especially considering our recent endeavors in the Middle East and how much resistance we've gotten in the form of guerrilla fighting and partisan militias and all that. So I really don't get the idea that Iran is going to play by what we expect them to. They're going to use whatever tactics they can that are going to be successful. So, would the U.S. win? Eventually, yes. That's not a question. How long it would take, how many lives it would take, and how many dollars it would take, that's different. So, no, I do not believe for a second that the United States should go to war. That will, of course, change if Iran decides to do something stupid. And when I say stupid, it's actually carried out. I think it's just ridiculous. Now, of course, I think our focuses should be de-escalating situations around the globe, but that's because I believe diplomacy and trade are better tools than the military. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have a military or that we shouldn't take pride in having the best military force on earth. I just think that we shouldn't have to use it to prove that we have the best military force on earth. If another nation dares us and actually initiates action, sure, I have no problems with it. But preemptive wars and being the world police is just a dumb idea, and I don't care who's in charge. Anyway, I know that got into a bit soapboxy territory, but I wanted to get that off my chest, considering the news. That's one of the reasons why I didn't bother uploading my political soapbox, which will be here on Saturday, is I just didn't want to put in something that wasn't super topical with, what happened this past week. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and say, judging based off of the polls I've gotten so far this week, Donald Trump has retaken the favorite role in my model. Remember that any state that's reasonably close within 5% can flip. And honestly, within 10, it's not outside the realm of possibility that it could become competitive or even flip if we're outside of if we're just outside of a standard deviation. So what I mean by that is, outside of a 2 to 3% standard deviation, which is normal, which is just normal standard deviation. Basically, if polls are off by about that much, any state that that my model considers a tilt is definitely in play. And anything in the lean category could flip given the right circumstances if we're outside of a standard deviation, but no more than 2. And I honestly don't think any state in the darker shades, so the likely column or the safe column, I really don't think any of those states are truly are really going to flip outside of something crazy happening. So anyway, as always, thank you very much. Likes, comments, and subscriptions definitely help. I'll see you guys next time. Take it easy. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.